past 5 years have been incredible for the fighting genre as a whole, but Street Fighter 4 is the king. It's just impossible to ignore the quality and impact on the genre. Street Fighter 4's combos may not be as long and flashy as Marvel, Persona or BlazBlue, but they're refined tests of execution nonetheless. It might not have the gore of Mortal Kombat, but let's be honest, no Street Fighter 4 would have meant no Mortal Kombat 9. Over the years, Street Fighter 4 has grown, but it's remained largely unshaken at a fundamental level. For every new face that would appear, the concrete upon which Street Fighter 4 stood would remain still. The game stayed underpinned by ultra attacks and focus attacks, with only the fighters that used them changing. It meant that the game, balanced to each side, remained a familiar constant, which is excellent given the quality of the game, but this also led to fatigue setting in for a lot of people. But that changes with Ultra Street Fighter 4 because now they've added Evil Cammy. We're joking of course, but Evil Cammy, or DiCaprio as she's actually called, is a unique zippy mix-up centric addition to the cast and one of the 5 new faces of the roster, the other being Street Fighter 3's Hugo and Elena, Street Fighter Alpha 2's Rolento and Street Fighter Cross Tekken's Poison, totaling 44. A ridiculous number for a one-on-one fighting game, and while they're all solid additions, they're probably the least interesting new things when we're talking about the grand vision of Ultra Street Fighter 4. And before we fill your ears with jargon, please know that Ultra Street Fighter 4 is a superb fighting game. It's a logical reshaping of the design, and if you enjoyed it before, then you can take confidence knowing it's more of what you love with interesting new mechanics to consider and master. First up, Red Focus. The focus attack in older versions of the game would let you soak up one attack and then launch a counter blow to try and surprise a predictable opponent, as long as they didn't use an attack with armor breaking properties. The mechanic's always been okay, but it's never really offered the real predict and punish oomph of, say, Street Fighter 3's parry. Red Focus is an attempt to bulk up this mechanic. It's essentially a way to spend 2 chunks of your super meter to absorb as many attacks as you want, then return fire. The mechanic's capabilities come to light when you realise that the Red Focus has the ability to essentially counter super and ultra attacks. Red Focus is not merely a way to mitigate damage, it's a full-blown counter, meaning that if you're able to turn what, in Street Fighter 4, would have been a small amount of unavoidable damage to you into a huge chunk of pain for a foolish opponent, it's not invincible, as it can still be broken by armor-breaking tactics, but when it works, it's supremely satisfying, and the mechanic ultimately adds a nice new notch to both Street Fighter 4's meter game and its defensive options. In terms of aggressive options, the Ultra Double takes care of business. It was originally referred to as a revenge attack, as it's a superpowered move you can perform if you're running out of health. Super Street Fighter 4 added a second Ultra for all the characters for you to choose between. Ultra lets you access to both in the same fight for a reduction in damage. In truth, this edition feels like a realisation of the Ultra mechanic, or at least a welcome alteration to a feature that was, up until now, horribly narrow in its application. Having access to 2 types of Ultra creates a spontaneity to the deployment that was missing from the previous iterations of Street Fighter 4, and it leads to more unpredictable bouts in the process. In Street Fighter 4, and many fighting games for that matter, there's a mechanic by which you can instantly get up after an attack, but Street Fighter 4 includes many instances where this mechanic isn't available, such as following a throw. Ultra Street Fighter 4 adds a mechanic for those instances through delayed Wakeup. If you're grounded by an attack that you can't perform an instant recovery from, then you can delay your recovery instead. And this is such a boon to the game because it forces many players to rewire their entire thought patterns in response to certain actions. As Chun-Li, you have a set follow-up to a throw. You know the timing required and you know the angles you want to move at. But delayed Wakeup changes this, because if your opponent knows you're a hasty attacker, then they can choose to get up a tiny fraction later than normal and evade the attack entirely. These 3 mechanics are huge, successful changes to the way Street Fighter 4 works, making Ultra Street Fighter 4 a welcome and thorough restoration of Street Fighter 4's increasingly creaky foundations. What was old is now new again, as they say. If any complaint needs to be levelled at the game, it's that outside of these changes, fan-pleasing extras such as addition selects of the fighters, requested modes such as the online training and online elimination scraps, and a few new arenas, it's all a bit bare bones, as a solo experience, even offering little in the way of tutorial material for the uninitiated. For example, those unsure of the new mechanics will need to consult an in-game electronic manual to read descriptions of them, and then work them out during combat or through training. Street Fighter 4 was a superlative experience even before today, but Ultra Street Fighter 4 with its well-devised additions has added the bacon to what was already a tasty burger. You don't know that Street Fighter 4 needs these mechanics until you've tasted it with them. Then it chucks some new characters on top for good measure. After the disappointingly meagre arcade edition, Ultra is an expansion every bit deserving of its title. Here's to the next 5 years of brave Ultra counters and delayed Wake-Up mix-ups.
K.O. So strong! You win!